All right, the next appeal we're going to talk about is logic, right? And so this is logos. This is the pretty straightforward stuff. It's numbers, it's citations, it's studies, it's these credible resources outside of you that make sure it's logic, right? These are syllogisms. If X is Y and Y is Z, then X equals Z. These kind of things where you are setting up your argument in a way that logically makes sense to us, right? As a listener, we're able to buy into all this stuff because it feels objective, right? It feels like it's something that was not manipulated by you, that was not tampered with, etc. It's pure, right? This is the closest thing to the capital T truth that exists out there. All right, and the number one way you use logos in a speech is obviously by providing evidence. Citing your sources. And we started doing this with your informative speeches, but now with your persuasive speeches, obviously you have 7 minimum sources. And you want to use these to back up any claims you're making, right? And so don't just tell us that people are dying as a result of this problem in our world. Cite a Harvard study that tells you where that came from. Cite a interview with somebody that experienced this trauma firsthand, or even this happy thing that happened firsthand from it, because that's going to be a lot more powerful than just simply making the claim, right? So just keep that in mind. Every claim you make needs to be backed up with data, right? With some sort of a logical backing that tells me, okay, this makes sense. This is something I should believe in and buy into. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the sources if you have not already found all of your sources that you may want to use. The first one obviously is print. The big bad place to go to is the library. I love the library. It's a phenomenal place. If you've never been to our library, we have some amazing librarians that are always willing to help people. I think that's actually my favorite thing about the library are the people who work there and all the work that they do for students and helping them find everything. I've had students numerous times come to me and say they just can't find sources for their speech, and I tell them to go to the library, and lo and behold, they walk out with a stack of resources that they can now use and cite in their speeches. Obviously, other print material counts like documentaries, things like that. Now, keep in mind when you're citing a documentary that not all documentaries are created equal, right? Was this a documentary that was created to sell tickets, or was this a documentary that was created to simply inform, right? And a good example of this was Super Size Me, right? Super Size Me, many of you have probably seen it that are watching this video. And while it was I think the message that we should be eating less fast food was important, it was proven years later when the scientifically, there was a college that tried to replicate the study using the exact same things that he said he did in the movie itself, and they found out that it was basically BS. He was making up all sorts of things because it made for a better movie. Now, that's not to say that fast food is good for us, right? His still the message was that we shouldn't be eating as much fast food. That's fine. That's an okay thing to argue, right? I still probably eat a little too much of it, but that's another side point. But the fact is, you want to make sure to do everything you can to see if this was something that was made to be entertainment, or was it something like a National Geographic, for instance, documentary that was made simply to inform us about a society that that they're studying, or that some sort of ethnographer gone in to teach us more about. Okay. Next up, obviously, is the interwebs, the internet. One of my favorite things to do is use research databases. Once again, going back to the library, if you go to the library's website at LAVC, you can click on research databases, and as a student at Valley, you're able to get these things that cost a lot of money for non-students to get access to for free. Right? There's all of these different databases you can use. One of my favorites is called LexisNexis. That's LEXIS. NEXIS. I used it all through our grad school. And you can search for pretty much any topic, and it's going to give you a bunch of print material, right? But they're in digital form on the internet. And so really recommend it. You can look through them. They have tons of databases there for you to use. The big thing when using the internet, though, is to be aware of the credibility of your sources, right? That's the beauty of the internet, at least as it stands right now, is that anybody can post anything. And that's also the scary part of the internet, right? But anything exists in the world for us to to post on there. If I decide to make a website, I can tell you how I feel about something. While that freedom is beautiful, it also comes with consequences when you're trying to research a speech, right? And so there's certain things you have to be aware of in crafting your sources and finding sources on the internet. First and foremost, do not cite Wikipedia. I can't stress enough, no Wikipedia. I think Wikipedia is actually a fantastic website, but when you cite Wikipedia, you're telling me that you just decided not to do the extra step and find credible information, right? That's not to say that Wikipedia is wrong. It's just the very nature of something with the term wiki in it means it's user generated, right? I can go on there right now and make myself the lead singer of a band and say that I'm dating Cardi B, right? And if I'm doing that, and for that split moment in time, Wikipedia is going to say that. And if you were to cite that in a speech, obviously you'd look like a fool, right? My wife might be upset about that too, right? And so the idea, though, is still that while it's probably credible, and while especially the well-trafficked sites are good, it's usually something where you want to start, and you might even be able to find some links to actual credible sources on there. Usually things with .gov or news sites are fine. Obviously not all news sites are created equal. But, you know, for the sake of this speech, if you're citing something that at least gives off the presence of a news source, I'll be okay with it. The thing you want to be aware of, though, is the perception of credibility also, right? Let's say if I'm doing a really left-leaning website, or left-leaning speech topic, right? Something that is touted by progressives, okay? And all of my sources are things like Daily Kos and Huffington Post, right? MSNBC, right? If I'm only citing stuff that has the perception of being more Democrat biased or more left-leaning biased on in the reporting, then do you think I'm going to convince someone on the right that's more conservative to buy into what I'm saying? Probably not. No, and the exact opposite holds true, right? If I'm doing a more conservative speech and all my sites are from Fox News and InfoWars and Breitbart and things like that are more on the right side leaning of the spectrum, obviously that is going to be something that's going to be really hard to convince someone that is more left-leaning, more progressive, to buy into whatever it is that I'm saying. And so keep that in mind. What is the perception of bias? And that's not saying you can't find good articles and research on both Fox News and MSNBC, right? That's literally the opposite of what I'm saying. It's not about if the reality is that it's good news, right? The reality is that it's credible. It's the perception of it based on your topic. Here, I'll give you another extreme example. Let's say if I was giving a speech on veganism, right? And everything I'm citing is from meatismurder.com and people that eat meat are dumb.org, right? Or something like that, right? If all of my citations are from those specific places, I'm probably not going to convince a meat eater to stop eating meat, right? But if I'm finding citations from things that appear more objective, right, that appear like they don't have necessarily a political agenda associated with them, I'm much more likely to buy into it, right? And so just keep that in mind. Be aware of the perception, especially with the idea, especially right now, the idea of quote-unquote fake news is very pervasive in the public dialogue, right? And so you have to always be aware of what is the perception of this source, and is it going to take away from my own credibility if I cite it, right? Is it going to take away from my credibility to my target audience if I end up using it to back up whatever claim that I'm making? All right, and obviously, the last thing you can use are experts in the field, right? These are people that are, doctors, lawyers, scientists, people that are well-versed in whatever it is you're talking about. And obviously, this is going to change depending on your topic. I mentioned my master's thesis on World of Warcraft, right? I interviewed gamers for many, many different sources in my actual speech itself, right? Now, if I was interviewing a gamer for a speech about the dangers of smoking, right? Probably not the best, most credible source. But if I'm interviewing a gamer about what it's like in a specific video game, all of a sudden now they are experts in that field. Okay, now obviously there's many different sources that exist out there. The number one thing, regardless of if you use print material, internet material, interviews with people, is just be aware of what is this source doing to add more credibility to your speech? What is this source doing to give logos power to whatever claim you're making, right? Because logos is especially powerful when you're speaking to people that disagree with you, right? If I'm talking to somebody about, why, here, I'll give an example from an actual speech in my class, about why LeBron is better than Kobe. No offense to Kobe fans, right? And I am just laying out statistic after statistic after statistic that is stating this narrative that I'm trying to build in this persuasive speech about LeBron being better, then eventually it's going to be hard for someone to disagree with me, right? Or vice versa. Maybe you think you have all the stats, whatever it is, to say that Kobe is better. That's not the point I'm making. The idea, though, is that if you have enough logos behind what you're saying, it's going to make it hard to disagree with you. It's going to make it hard for people to, even people that disagree with your premise, to not at least listen to what you're saying. All right, now, we've gone through all that kind of stuff, talking about all these different sources, but the fact remains that you can still manipulate logos. And this is where good rhetoricians kind of make their money, right? This is where good persuaders can make a objective number feel subjective, feel like it makes sense. So let's use an example of, let's pretend that I am a doctor or a researcher, and I have created a new pill that cures 5 in 10 patients of this disease X, this thing that people are suffering from. Okay, so I've created this pill and I want to market it to people. And so what I'm going to do is focus on how wonderful it is that this brand new medication can cure 5 in 10 people suffering from this disease, right? And I'm going to focus on those 5 people. And you might buy into it. You're like, wow, I want to be one of those 5 people. I don't want to continue suffering from this disease. Tell me more, doctor, right? However, on the other side of the issue is the person that had the original treatment for that disease that's going on. And they tend to lose a lot of money if you end up switching to this new treatment, right? And so they're going to focus on the other 5 people, right? The 5 in 10 that were not cured from it. And they're going to say, do you really want to waste your time, your hopes, your dreams on this new medication that might cure you, that only has a 50% chance of curing you, right? When you're likely just going to be, end up more broke and more hopeless than before. Right? That's going to be their sales pitch to try to get you to focus on those sorts of things, right? And those aren't just numbers, right? What are they also using there? They're using emotion, right? They're getting you to feel certain things about these numbers, right? And that's where pathos comes in, and that's what we're going to talk about in our very next video on the use of emotional appeals in your speech.